DDG episode 110. My name is Dave Hunt, and I'm joined by Michael Swick.
How's it going, Dave? We're like 2 days away from the Game Awards. So you feel the excitement, the disappointment, whatever is going to happen Thursday?
Okay, so I've seen like 4 or 5 things on the level of Elden Ring. I've seen that headline. And then, personal perspective, there's a Destiny Witch Queen trailer coming, so that's cool. But I'm also working. So like it's kind of one of those things where like I'll just watch a YouTube video of the recap because that award shows in general don't really do it for me, but I do hope there's some cool stuff shown.
Yeah, I just hope it's not as long. Like, because I think last year was like 3 hours, and it was not including the pre-show, or it might have been the year before that.
Yeah,
I'm excited because I always get excited for these and then become disappointed very soon after.
So I mean, but 4 or 5, AAA or name brand kind of games being announced or shown or dated is kind of cool, and then some of the other stuff that is kind of getting out of the way already. Like, even like it's not on the agenda, but the little bit that we saw today for the Uncharted piece or the Uncharted PS5 remaster, like getting a date, getting, the upgrades and stuff like that would have been kind of cool to show that trailer at the Game Awards, I think.
So they didn't reveal the PC release date yet.
Yeah.
So there's a chance at the Game Awards it's going to be released because the Steam page went live a couple days ago. So I have a feeling they're going to drop Uncharted on PC, so that's gonna be pretty cool. I'm excited for that upgrade thing, though I'm a little confused based on.
Yeah, I think I bought Lost Legacy, so I think I get it automatically, right?
I think I have it on disc.
Well, it's on. But it's also apparently it was on, Uncharted 4 was on Plus. And then if you got it from Plus, it doesn't count as a $10 upgrade.
But Lost Legacy, technically I bought because I got it as a season pass with 4.
Yeah, so you bought 4.
But the thing is, I don't want to have to use my disc for 4.
Yeah.
But since I had the season pass purchase that was Lost Legacy,
right,
and Lost Legacy counts as a thing, can I get a digital code without using my disc?
All I know is that when I checked the store today, after I saw the announcement, on my phone, I went to each version of the game, Uncharted 4, Uncharted Lost Legacy, and it all of them said download the console, so which meant that I have a digital version of it. So I had forgotten that I had the UC4 was on Plus, but I do remember, I think I remember purchasing Lost Legacy when it was like $10, like on some like Black Friday or like PSN State of Play sale or something crazy. So
I look forward to in January 25th
or whatever the release date is. All right,
because that's going to determine if I play it. It's just like, I got to put a disc in. No, never mind. I don't want to do it.
All right. So a little side tangent aside there. We are Digital Days Gaming. We are a weekly podcast that goes live every Thursday, 6 a.m. Eastern Time on podcast services around the world. Please leave us a review if you are able to. That is super helpful. If you can use words, that's helpful as well. We also stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/Digital Days Gaming, where we are a Twitch affiliate. So if you have Amazon Prime, you can link it to your Twitch account. You get something called Twitch Prime. You get a bunch of free games if you play on PC or some other cool things too. And I've seen stuff for Smite and for Fortnite and for just random games. Fall Guys, all that stuff. There's codes in there. And all that stuff, so you can check that stuff out, and you can, while you're there, consider subbing to us with that Twitch Prime account that you have, and that would be super helpful. Or you can just do a paid sub if you want to, or just follow and don't sub and hang out when we stream, and that's also helpful. Helps it grow. So with that, everything else is linked in the show notes. You can check in the show notes in the podcast descriptions. There'll be links to all of our socials, Patreon, PayPal, all that stuff is there, so you can check those things out. And we're gonna jump into some news.
Yeah, we got a little bit of EA news to start with. First one was kind of a weird announcement, but then it made sense to me after reading it a couple times. But Titanfall is being retired from storefronts. So Respawn last week announced, along with EA, that Titanfall will be leaving storefronts on March 1st, 2022. A lot of people assume that would mean the servers would be shut down, but in that same statement, they said the multiplayer will stay turned on. They are not planning to shut it down in the immediate future. So this is basically just going to remove it from purchase on, Origin, Steam, PlayStation, and Xbox. And it is also going to remove it from Game Pass and EA Play on those days as well. So it sounds like they're just trying to keep new players from coming into the game. So then they don't have to worry about like server maintenance and all that stuff. And then once that community kind of dies further, then I would assume they turn off those servers.
So 2 things. One, this game has been on sale like stupid cheap forever, so just buy it.
Yeah.
Like whatever you play it on, just buy it. 2, if you have Game Pass, whether it's on PC or on console, I think you get 20% off whatever price it is on sale for. So I'm not 100% for sure on that, but this game should be like $5. Like at the, I'd have to look.
It usually is.
Yeah.
It's usually 5.
So just buy this game. Just so, if you haven't played it yet, it's probably one of the top 5 shooter campaigns.
No. This is the first one.
Ah, okay.
This is Titanfall 1. Titanfall 2 is still fine.
Right.
Titanfall 1 is just a multiplayer only game.
Oh, okay.
It had a campaign, but they tried to do that thing where they blended the campaign and the multiplayer together.
Okay. I think I'm just merging both the games together now at this point because they're so old.
Yeah.
But regardless, like just buy the game for them. Like Respawn is a studio that does really, really good work, so just buy their game.
Well, and also, like at this point, it's just the multiplayer will probably see an influx of people just trying to get in one last time before, because usually that anytime they're going to remove something from the store, people will just buy it just so they can have it in their library. So there might be an influx of players, if only temporarily before.
If you're a physical collector as well, like it might be something cool to have, So
yeah, just have all the Titanfall games.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they're just gonna. This makes sense. I mean, it just means that they don't have to worry about new players, so then they can like really focus on like slowing those servers down.
Yeah, they've had some weird stuff going on too, where people are like protesting wanting them to make a Titanfall 3, but like
by sabotaging
clowns
Titanfall.
in Titanfall. Yeah, like it's so weird. So just Respawn's a great studio, and they deserve every dollar they can get. So,
and speaking of Respawn, next story. So Battlefield is going to go through some major changes with their leadership. So the main thing, the current head of DICE is leaving EA and DICE, and it looks like they are basically going to be replaced by Respawn's head, Vince Zampella. So he is now going to be in charge of the Battlefield franchise. A couple months ago, it was reported that he was basically taking over LA DICE to basically work on
now he's
Battlefield
taking over
game.
DICE.
Yeah, now he's just taking over the franchise completely, and it will be there. It sounds like they're going to basically create like a universe in the Battlefield franchise. So they want like interconnected games and stories. They actually something that we also reported on or talked about a couple weeks ago. Mark Lido, the creator of Halo, who recently was given basically money to start a studio in Seattle for EA, is now going to be in charge of creating stories in the Battlefield 2042 universe. So it looks like basically it sounds like DICE is just kind of going to be used maybe as just like an artillery studio at this point, which is what they've kind of been doing already.
They're probably going to be focusing on the multiplayer, like making sure the multiplayer is consistent and working, and then this other studio is going to be focusing on whatever the Battlefield universe would be.
But here's where it gets a little more interesting. Ripple Effect, who made the Battlefield 2042 Portal mode, are going to be given more funds to expand on that mode and support it. So it sounds like Ripple Effect...
that's really the only positive thing that's come out of this launch so far is Portal.
Yeah. So it sounds like Ripple Effect is going to be handling the multiplayer, and then DICE LA is going to be doing whatever under Vince Zampella, and then the Seattle studio...
Weapon balancing. Make sure the gun shoots straight.
And then and then the Seattle studio is going to be making the story stuff. So DICE has been known as kind of like the artillery, the backbone of the infrastructure, because they're the people that made Frostbite. So it's like when Madden
they've
has
always
issues,
been the engine people too, like that.
Yeah. So they might be being put back down to being like, you're the tech and engine people. We're gonna have the people that are known for doing stories do stories. We're gonna put the studios that are known for multiplayer in the charge of
the stuff the wording around Battlefield. I mean, there's some people in our community that are having a great time playing it. I know that. I know they have their nights and they're enjoying it, but I think they're Battlefield fans regardless, and that's fine. And Battlefield's gonna sell; it always sells. But in terms of the increase or what EA is looking for, like it ain't hitting it. So, so it's just super interesting to see. I am worried about a little bit of them thinking that Vince is a golden boy, and he's been doing a fantastic job, but it might be too much to fix. Like it might be too much to resurrect or to handle. Like,
but it's one of those things where,
but I'm losing the word. Like he did a fabulous job with Apex. He did a great job with Titanfall and with leading Jedi Fallen Order, all of that. He's
Call of Duty
yeah,
Modern Warfare, the
right.
most successful
Yeah,
modern
he's
warfare.
done he's done fantastic jobs with that. And it just might be Battlefield might be a little bit of a struggle to save.
Yeah,
Like,
I would hope,
not that it needs
because
saving, but to get it to the next level, I guess.
it needs a win.
Yeah.
Basically right now. But it's one of those things where I hope with all this change, especially when you have a Seattle studio that was just announced it was being formed like a month or two ago, this means they will take a year off from Battlefield
Yeah.
And give these studios time, maybe more than a year off. This might be one of those things where EA is going to have to be like, all right, we're just not going to put out a shooter for like 2 years, 3 years. And then they'll put something out because they kind of just need to take a break because they've had too many duds.
And like Glorious War is saying, like, Battlefield still has a massive player count. Yeah, 100% it still has a massive player count, but EA wants dramatic growth. Battlefield's games have always had really high player counts for the first quarter that they're out, like the first 90 days to 120 days that they're out. Then it just falls off massively. You get your hardcore players that are continuing to play it and still do it, but you're not getting the seasonality growth of what COD was getting up until Vanguard, and then what some of these other games are getting when they do seasonal updates. Like I still see conversation around Apex when there's a seasonal update. Fortnite just ended Chapter 2 to Chapter 3, and they like dominated the internet for like a weekend. Granted, like it's a free to play game, but the conversation around Battlefield consisted of like all the people that were playing early because they pre-ordered the deluxe edition of the game, and then it just kind of stopped being talked about.
Yeah. Well, what also doesn't help is like the Battlefield community is large enough, but they also aren't the happiest community because of the support that EA is given the game.
It's going to be a top 10 NPD game. Like it's just going to be by default.
Yeah, but right now the EA has to be focused on growth and also just happiness of the community. Because I'm sure they're seeing people from the community drop off with each like lackluster Battlefield game. It's still a huge
and they're
number.
hoping that Vince can do that, and he's shown that he can do that with Modern Warfare and Apex already as like continuous getting players to can stay on and keep playing. But can he do that with a Battlefield franchise? Can he do that with a Battlefield franchise that's kind of pretty much already launched without his insight? So that's the super interesting part of like if they're going to buckle down or double down on this 2042 world, which it sounds like they are.
Which makes no sense to me because there's nothing about 2042 because it doesn't have a single player campaign.
Right.
It doesn't feel like it has an identity to build a universe around other than the year.
So it's super interesting.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how long EA is going to give Vince Zampella. I imagine you give him as much time as you need because they seem to have given him basically rough shot, in terms of like this, like just do what you want. We make all of our studios use Frostbite. You don't have to use Frostbite. So I want to know, are they going to continue to use Frostbite or will they just be like, you know what, Apex looks fine on the engine Apex is running on. Let's see what you guys can do with that. Or are they still locked into, all right, Frostbite, have to use it. Like, can Vince Zampella have the sway to be like, I'm using Unreal Engine 5 for the next Battlefield? And would they be okay with that? Or are they going to be fine if he just comes out and is just like, I need 3 years to make something, especially because that Seattle studio was just announced.
Yeah.
A month
we're
or two
starting
ago.
like similar conversation that we're having that I like some people that have been having in some of the other Discords I'm in, like I'm not going to get his name 100% correct, but John Staten or Jason Staten, the guy that just came back to 343 recently to work on Halo, that previously worked on Halo. Like he's only been back like 6 or 7 months, my understanding. And the stuff everybody's complaining about, the stuff that's coming in May to Halo Infinite, besides the campaign reviewing really well and the multiplayer seeming to have really good player counts right now, everybody's like, well, this game should have came out in May. Like, well, A, Xbox couldn't afford for this game to come out in May, and B, like this is probably stuff that Stanton had to install when he got there. Like that wasn't like, I'm really curious of what this game would have been if they didn't bring Stanton back. Am I saying his name right? Staten?
It's Joseph Staten.
Staten.
So
okay.
you had the last name right, first name wrong.
So I'm like, and this would be something similar. Like now, like Vince walks into this room and he has to tell people like, hey, great concept, poor execution. Let's go this way, and he like, does he have that power? And it looks like Staten at 343 has that power because everything I keep hearing about, like at the reviews posted, like inability to replay campaign missions in Halo. Oh, that's coming in May. Co-op coming in May. Forge coming in May. Like that's leading me to believe the possibility of like none of those things were going to be in the game at all.
Or the state they were in was not
Yeah.
acceptable, and you bring in a closer.
And Staten's like, or what was negotiated when he came back. Like,
yeah. Well, because the head of it sounds like his role specifically was to close things up. I forget the person's name, but the person who's head of the initiative, the Perfect Dark Studio, he had the track record of being brought in to close games, like from like I think Take-Two to Microsoft. He would just come in because you just need someone to come in and be like, okay, this is what we're doing, this is what we're not doing, because it's hard for people that are creating to like pull themselves away from it. So you need someone to come in and then just be like, this is what we're doing. They gave me permission to do what I want, and this is what we have to do. And it sounds like they're putting in enough people, like, because you have Vincent Pella, then you have the creator of Halo, Leto, coming in. So you have two people with pedigree that you would imagine you hire them because you're going to give them the rope to work.
Yeah.
But
this is almost like, slack. I mean, we're almost talking about like kind of 3 in a row that aren't hitting on what EA wanted. Now, it might, for Battlefield franchise, or almost 4. It might be, like EA has unrealistic expectations. Sure. Like that's 100% valid. But you're talking about Battlefield 1 or Battlefield 5, right? Does 5? Yeah, 5 exists. Battlefield 1, Battlefield 2042, and then I almost feel like Hardline was before 5 and after 4, which I know for sure was after 4. And so you're talking about Hardline 5.
Oh, it's
1.
Battlefield 1, 5, Hardline. Yeah, Hardline 1, 5.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Or it's something to that
extent.
Extent
it's like 3 or 4 games.
Yeah,
where
and all those games, when you go back and look at them, other than Hardline, when you go back and look, they're top 8, top 10 selling games of all of the year that they came out. So they're gonna do well like that. But that's not what EA wants. EA wants FIFA shooter.
So. And also EA wants a game that maybe doesn't have problems at launch, which is Battlefield 4 was the best Battlefield game in probably forever.
Terrible at launch for like 90 days.
Yeah. And at a certain point, EA has to, like, the amount of money that they have to spend, when they launch a game bad to, like, get it to a point where it could be Battlefield 4, where we look fondly on it and be like, this is one of the greatest Battlefield games ever.
And then to your point, the counterpoint is that Sempella brings out a game that nobody knew was coming.
Yeah.
And it worked.
And
it's always worked. I've really never heard about Apex connection issues or server issues. I've heard about some cheater stuff going on in Apex, but again, I don't play it. But in terms of connections to stability, it's been damn near flawless.
Yeah, in terms of foundations, he's been able to lead them. I mean, honestly, there is a chance that like Jedi Fallen Order shouldn't have worked. That on paper was just like Respawn making a Star Wars game. That okay. And that worked out really well. Apex being what it is, Titanfall being the risk it was, especially we just talked about Titanfall 1. That one had a rough start, but it wasn't because of Respawn. It was because EA launched it between Call of Duty and Battlefield. Yeah. So for the most part, he's been able to
right the ship through crazy waves.
Yeah. So I imagine that's why they're trusting him. And then, he didn't want to do the story, so they were able to pull in the Halo person to come in there and try and do the story. So we'll just see how long this takes. I hope they give him time to do it.
Yeah, I hope we're not talking episode 210 of Vincent Pella's been let go by EA or something,
Yeah, which usually tends to happen with these stories of just like, they hired this person, they threw money at it, and then had unrealistic expectations for them, so the person left. Especially now that we have studios created specifically for these people to achieve something.
Yeah.
All right. Last story I pulled. This is from Bloomberg. So basically, the report is PlayStation is going to merge Plus and Now and go to a 3-tier system potentially in the spring. So the code name for this program is called Spartacus. It will offer modern and classic games, and it is 3 tiers. So the first tier is current PlayStation Plus. Tier 2 is PlayStation Plus and a library of PS4 and PS5 games. and then 3-tier is everything includes everything above or previously mentioned, along with extended demos, game streaming, and a library of PS1, PS2, PS3, and PSP games, with a launch target of spring 2022. So obviously this is PlayStation kicking the tires on a potential Game Pass competitor. I will start by saying this: Bloomberg has sometimes got their wires crossed on some of this thing, so these tiers could change by the time this thing launches, or this thing might never launch because it's something they're just trying to see if they can do, or if it's like financially worth them doing. But Dave, thoughts on a 3-tier system?
Confusing to the consumer, so I hate it. Right off the bat, potential to be solid, I guess, to a PlayStation gamer. I think that PlayStation needs something to rebrand PlayStation Now. PlayStation Now as a brand just doesn't work. I'm not saying that PlayStation Now doesn't functionally work. PlayStation Now as a brand is not working. It's interesting. Me personally, I'm intrigued, but I wouldn't do tier 3 because old games are old.
I would be into tier 3 depending on the price. It makes sense that they would put the old games as old classic stuff in tier 3 because that's like those people are going to be willing to pay the extra costs for tier 3. I agree with you. I don't know if I want a tiered system. It seems a little. I understand you need to do. If this was 2 tiers, I think I would be fine with it. 3 tiers is kind of like, let's see how this turns out.
And again, everyone's like, well, Microsoft has Game Pass and Game Pass Ultimate. Yes, but you're getting significantly different things with each one of them, as well as a connection to them. Versus like, okay, so this tier you can get PS4 and 5, but if you want the other older games, you have to get this tier. Like even if you don't, like it's just weird. Again, it's not finalized. Like who knows? I think in order for this to be successful, maybe you go to a 2-tier system and you merge tier 1 and 2 together to where if you get Plus, you get these PS4 and PS5 games, which they're already doing anyways.
I mean, they're doing it in terms of PlayStation Plus. You get only like 3 games, so like I wouldn't go that far.
The total Sony thing that I think they would do though, that would 100% be them for PS4 and PS5 is like, okay, well, all the previous Plus games that we've announced for PS4 and PS5 are just on the library now. Like that's what it would be, I think. So for a longtime PS Plus subscriber, tier 1 and 2 might not be good. The thing that I saw that I thought was the most interesting, and a couple people that I trust were talking about this, can PS4 play a PS3 game through the rumor is that the PS4, even through an emulation system, isn't strong enough to play emulation PS3 games. That's why they have to stream them on Now.
Yeah, I think they would end up having, which is why I think the classic ones are just being put on the 3rd tier, is because according to this, the 3rd tier is where you get streaming.
Right.
So that's why.
So you're saying that if you got the 2nd tier and you got a PS, which is only PS4 and PS5 games, so that wouldn't matter. Yeah. So the 3rd, see, that's if it's streaming, like I hate it even more because that's what people are talking about their issues with now are. And Game Pass, again, as the competitor in the conversation, you just download everything.
Yeah. I mean, and that's why like the only way the tier 3 works for me is if I can download those games on my PS5.
Right.
If it's exclusively streaming, I understand having to stream to PS4, but when it comes to PS5, I would hope I would be able to download those and it would have like the emulator stuff figured out for that. But I definitely think this is something PlayStation should do. It's just, and again, this is going to be something that they're going to like move around and work on and figure out the things to go.
And the other stuff that I saw too of people thinking that all these games might get like a 60 frame or 60, like a frames update and trophy updates, like you're crazy.
Yeah, no. It most likely wouldn't be like trophies or anything like that, which I'm fine with.
It would just work. You could just play it on your PS5.
I don't see them like I understand why they're doing the 1st tier. Just having a tier where it's just PlayStation Plus just makes sense because you don't want to raise the prices on anybody,
right?
Because you're gonna lose stuff there.
Xbox still has Xbox Live.
Yeah, so PlayStation Plus just being there as tier 1 makes perfect sense. So I like that. So they're not forcing people to go into this. Or, telling people like, oh, we're going to raise the price in the future. but I'm curious to know what like because Game Pass can be super expensive. Like we can't lie that like PlayStation or Xbox Game Pass is expensive for Ultimate. So I'm guessing that's the price range that they're playing with. Is if like will is tier 3 equivalent price wise to Game Pass Ultimate is going to be very intriguing in
So
terms of like
180
what
for
they
the
can do.
year, right?
Yeah, which I don't know if tier 3 can reach that, but they might be able to look better by undercutting that, and properly evaluating that.
Well,
Uh,
and then the thing that's interesting that Bloomberg was saying in the report was talking about not really any first party day one. Which is fine. Like Sony doesn't. I don't think Sony needs that. I think Sony's day
no,
one, Sony's franchises sell well enough on day one. I've said that for years. But that could be something that helps them maybe only make this like 120, so double the cost of Plus. So like tier one is 60 or whatever. Tier two is 100. Tier three is 130. Like maybe.
yeah, I was thinking 60, 90, 120.
Yeah.
Like that's what I was that would be what I would be willing to do for
Without
that like third tier.
and I guess it would also depend on what because like what's not mentioned in here is there's like a library of PS4 and PS5 games without maybe Sony first party games, but would a game or a franchise like Outriders end up on this program? In fall of 2023 or 2022 of like a new game coming, and now does it become the battle between does the studio go to Sony and PlayStation and say, hey, we want to put our game on one of your services, like make us an offer, and then
Yeah.
do you see a battle back and forth for that? Like,
I would assume you would, though PlayStation does have the back catalog to like
mhm,
really make this service like a very attractive offer for day one, but like day 1,000, they're
right,
gonna have to be battling for these day one releases. And I think eventually, when Jim Ryan talked about like it's just not feasible for them to do a Game Pass thing in terms of how they build their games, if they start the service now, in 5-10 years down the road, they can restructure how they make their
mhm.
games to allow them to put their games day one on Game Pass. Uh, and then
But I
just
think
work from there.
it's a great opportunity. So let's say that like as an example, let's say that this does come out in spring of 2022, and God of War comes out in fall of 2022. God of War Ragnarok. Like you put God of War on this service, like before
Yeah,
Ragnarok comes out. Like
yeah.
or if there's an Uncharted 5 coming, then all of a sudden a couple months before it comes out, you put Uncharted 4 remaster on this service after like to hopefully springboard the sales of the next franchise. Like whatever you're planning or doing, you use your old first party like Horizon. I know they gave it like kind of for free during the pandemic, but like this is a franchise that you build upon and you put it on the service and you leave it there forever.
Well, no, well, I think they don't even do the thing where they don't put God of War on until Ragnarok comes out. I think if
Yeah.
PlayStation just puts their entire back catalog, just needs to be on there, and they have to worry about like
Yeah,
how
like
long it takes to get there.
maybe you make a decision of like I'm a year out from launch is when our games hit, hit our
Yeah,
service like a year away. So even
or
if you're
when it
somebody
hits
that
PC.
yeah,
Like,
if you're somebody that has an extensive backlog, then all of a sudden you're like, you know what, I'm gonna pay for this subscription service, sell or trade my games or whatever, or whatever you're gonna do because you know that or you keep them and put them on the shelf and not worry about unwrapping them, Michael.
yeah,
And then know that hey, you know what, I'm gonna catch up on my backlog through this service and and play these games, knowing that I'll never get to Horizon 2 until a year later. So as he unwraps a game on stream. So, but it's super, super interesting. That's probably not even judgment. If Curry's here, it's not even judgment. See, look at you.
I don't even know where the fuck Judgment is right now.
He opened Resident
There's a
Evil for
code.
those that are interested. You can't see the bottom half. You're fine. See, there's Curry.
Yeah.
Play Judgment. There he is. So,
Where the fuck is Judgment? Yeah, but go on. Yeah, yeah.
all right, yeah. So it's super interesting. I would love at this point in time as these stories, not that I, whether you like or don't like Jason Schreier, like at a certain point in time, like Sony needs to come out and okay, like our stuff leaked. Let's have a little conversation about it. Like,
Yeah,
don't go
I
too
mean,
far, but let's just, we're looking at it, because right now they've been, like you said, like the last thing we heard about Jim Ryan saying, I don't think a Game Pass like service is feasible for us. That's the last
yeah.
thing we've heard Ryan say about a subscription style service.
But this also could be one of those things where someone at Sony who's working on Spartacus is like, "Hey, leak this to Schreier.
Yeah.
Let's get a feel for like what people think about this, and then we can like."
Yeah, because now you have an intern just scrolling through Twitter. Oh, that's a good idea. Oh wait, we should take that out. Okay.
Yeah.
Like.
Because there could be someone who's like listening who like, oh well, they said 120 is reasonable, like 180 is not reasonable.
Yeah.
Let's go right in 150, right?
Right.
Let's meet them in the middle. I definitely think this is something Sony does need to do, and I really think they have the back catalog to make that PS1, PS2, PS3 thing so worth it. Even for someone like you, who's like, old game is old, but they have the franchises that Microsoft didn't have before they purchased Bethesda. To where if they were like, here's all of our PS2
the caveat
games.
too, Michael, as I say, old game is old, but I'm always looking for stuff for Owen to mess with that I know is safe and playable and that he can play. And today I was dabbling a little bit with Destiny right when I got home from work because of the 30th anniversary update. He was sitting next to me and he starts, he's paying attention more. He's 6, like he's learning stuff and doing stuff. He's getting better at games, and he's like, he literally asked today about like, when can I learn to play this game? And I'm like, well, I could teach you to play the game whenever you want. But in my mind, I'm like, this might be really complicated for him to play to play Destiny in 2021. But he could play a shooter on PS2.
Yeah.
As he's learning the controls and everything.
And this would be fantastic, like, way to survey the audience for PlayStation.
Yep.
In terms of like, okay, people want another Sly Cooper game, or people want MotorStorm brought back. Okay, is anyone playing this on PlayStation Plus Premium or whatever the fuck it's going to be called? To where it's like, you know what? A lot of people are still playing.
17% of our player base is downloaded the Sly Cooper game of like as an example, like, okay, well, like, if we release a new one, like, I'm sure there's some algorithm they use or something,
Yeah. And then if they wanted to use like a Sly Cooper thing where it's just like, okay, feasibly we can't put this on day one if it's a gigantic Naughty Dog level AAA. Yeah. But what if we do like a B tier, not B tier as in quality, but in terms of budget, Sly Cooper game, and we put it day one on the service,
or they remaster it and just to see, like they just like you said, give it a and put it on the service and just see what happens of how many people are playing it with some updated controls, like they give it a medieval style update.
Yeah, and I also think this would benefit people in general in terms of like, if this is successful, that could also start an even bigger fire under Xbox with Game Pass of like, oh shit, there is people that really want this. Let's invest more into this. And then maybe Nintendo will add GameCube games in 10 years. Like they'll see Microsoft and PlayStation thriving at this. Like, you know what? Paper Mario, here you go.
Do you ever think there's somebody that sits at the table or is in that little corner of their Zoom call that's like got like data in his hand, like just flailing it at the screen, and like nobody's paying attention to him? Like,
oh yeah, no, that's the person that told them how many dislikes there are on the video.
No, but I'm just saying of like, oh, look, well, people don't want a new Wind Waker game. They just want an HD remake. They want a Skyward Sword remake. And he's over here like, hey, like, come on. and his screen is like so little. like
Yeah. They just mute him from the chat every once in a while. It's like, I don't know, it's Brian. He really thinks he knows what fans want. They want broken GameCube games. Yeah, no, I mean, we've been talking about PlayStation needs to do something. Yeah. It didn't seem feasible for them. I wonder, though, with this, like, leaking, if this puts a deadline on when they can announce it. Because the thing saying, like, oh, it's spring 2022, which to me, spring 2022 means E3 time, which is summer 2022.
But then announcement to launch, there has to be a buffer. So like then that's already like, I don't know. Do you do like a E3 state of play and say, hey, PlayStation Plus Premium available now? Like I don't know if Sony can pull that off.
I think you do, but you call it a beta. Game Pass was a beta for a while. Okay. I think you have to throw the beta
Halo
name
Infinite.
on it. You have to do the
with no progression.
Yeah, you slap the beta name on it and still charge people, and then just make people think that they're special because they're beta testing the service that they're paying for.
Hit the website now so we get all your instant data. Now. Do it now.
Yeah. I would love for the back catalog, especially when they're talking about like bringing PSP games and PS3 games. I would want to know how weird that system would be of like, okay, you can play PS1, PS2, and PS3 games downloaded, but PS3 games you have to stream.
Yeah.
It seems like it could be
Sony will mess this up. Like,
Yeah, I'm just worried about the messaging.
Yeah.
In terms of
and I don't
also
want
just
that
the
damn
upgrade
box
path.
showing up on my screen right away.
Yeah, like I hate every time I delete the PS Now thing like every
Yeah.
couple months, and then it always gets re-put back on
Yeah.
as the first thing, and I accidentally click it, and then it's like, oh, you should download this.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good that PlayStation's getting in on this. I just hope they get their messaging right.
Yeah, I hope it's
think
real, and I hope they can. Yeah, like to your point, I hope they can deliver and not do what they've been doing or like announce something cool, and then all the fine print is in a blog. Like, just be very transparent about it.
Yeah, or announce it and saying coming this winter,
Yeah.
and it's just like, wait, we're gonna have to wait 8 months for this service that we don't know how it's gonna be.
Yeah.
So that is it for the news. I mean, Game Awards is coming up, so things are kind of hush hush right now. Activision continues to be trash.
Yeah. If we have to
So-
record late Thursday night, we can do that if there's enough.
Yeah.
So
So there's not a ton of news, and the news that is out is kind of not news,
Yeah,
or it's not new news.
it's December, so this is
Yeah.
this is to be expected. The Game Awards is going to be the most important thing that happens in the gaming world in December.
Yeah.
So and that being in December means that they're not delaying their games. So far nothing has been delayed this week.
as far as we know.
Yeah. So what we're playing and watching, I'll go first just because I'm pretty brief. I've had one day off from work since the last time we recorded, and a portion of that day was spent doing some family stuff. I played a little bit like today, like the Destiny 30th anniversary. I played like 30 minutes of it. Right off the bat, some of the stuff that they've put in there is kind of interesting. Again, the storytelling is really good. It's the 30th anniversary pack, so they've brought a bunch of Destiny 1 weapons back into the game. They're definitely pulling on the nostalgia strings for like the 10,000th time. And based on the 30 minutes that I played today, like I'm here for it. Like there was a music from the first game going on with the Vex, the first time we ever fought the Vex. So it's just everybody knows that Destiny holds a very large place and strong place in my heart. And it will for a long, long time. And just the music today was kind of cool. It just made me smile for a little bit. A little bit more Guardians, not too much. I've been super, super tired every time I come home from work. And then I did watch 8-Bit Christmas on it's on HBO Max. I posted it in the Facebook group, the trailer. You're gonna get the actor's name better than I am because I can't. I'm terrible with names. But the guy that played Doogie Howser.
Neil Patrick Harris.
Yes. So Neil Patrick Harris was the main character. This movie gave me a little bit of Christmas Story feeling to it in terms of like it's essentially like 1987 and it's him and his buddies like passion and desire to get a Nintendo. To get then the parents against Nintendo and like touched upon like the Power Glove being like terrible and like the one rich kid in the town that had everything and so it had some some funny moments. Is it something that I will like want to watch like every Christmas? No. Is it something that I regretted watching? No. It was funny and it had some interesting parts to it. I wouldn't say it's like super like video game nostalgic or anything like that. There's a pretty interesting story that's told there in general, but it's on HBO Max, so definitely worth. I think it's worth the watch. It's short. It's like an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes. I liked it. I enjoyed it. Watched some football. Lions won. Michigan won the Big Ten. So
How hard did you guys like riot in the streets when that happened?
I was at work and near the end of the game because they won on the last as time expired as a touchdown as the game ended. I Facebook called my wife and had her turn her camera around on the TV so I could watch. So because I didn't have like the Fox app downloaded on my phone or anything like that. So so it's just yeah. So and then like I said, Michigan won their Big Ten title for the first time since like 2004. So that was pretty cool. I didn't go to either Michigan or Michigan State, but growing up I was a Michigan fan, so I'm just a Michigan fan by default. So that was kind of nice. So but yeah, for the most part that's it. That's really all because like I said, I've been pretty worn down, and so A lot of times it just ends up being background music. I did finish Superstore, the show Superstore on Halo on Hulu. That actually had a really good to great season finale for that show. I
Is it
understand.
a continuing show?
Yeah, it's 6 seasons.
Okay.
And I finished all 6 seasons. It's like 20-minute episodes. It's that classic, Tuesday night sitcom that they had or whatever. So it's one of those things where you can, knock out like 4 or 5 episodes like in an hour and a half, So I feel like I pretty much finished this in November. Like I started watching this in November and finished it, recently in late October. So I know I was much more time invested in terms of like I remember what happened at the beginning better than the average person that watched this 6 years ago.
Yeah.
But I liked it. It was funny. I think that you was working as much retail as you've worked the first season or two, you get some kicks out of it, and then you may or may not get slightly invested into the story. You probably wouldn't, and you would check out.
Yeah.
So,
Most likely.
But the
threshold for sitcoms is all over the place.
But the little retail stories that they tell for the first season or season and a half of like, oh, the corporate wants us to do it, walk backwards and hold up signs, like stupid stuff like that. Like the way they play on that was good. So, but yep, that's it. So.
For me, it's been a ton of like dabbling in games as opposed to sitting down and finishing it. Like Guardians, I'm probably halfway through, but I lost access to my PS5 because Endwalker came out. And
he put a ring on her finger and she took the controller.
Yeah, Endwalker is like no joke in terms of like.
I've heard it's like 50 hours just to get through to whatever they launched.
Yeah,
and that's
but
to get to like the post game stuff.
But like right now, what the problem is, because so they basically did early access on Friday, and then the game comes out today, Tuesday. But the only problem is their servers have been at capacity, so you queue, and if you're like 6,000 in a queue, it could be multiple hours before you get to even play the game.
Oof.
So it's definitely been one of those days or those weeks where, if she wants to play at like noon,
she
has to turn that system on. Yeah, and then hopefully gets in.
What's the community feedback been around that though? Because like again, my perspective is when Destiny or Battlefield or Division has these problems, people lose their damn mind.
So the Final Fantasy community tends to be one of the nicest communities around this thing because the developers are so apologetic and put their face out there. They tend to get away with a lot more stuff. So they were having queue issues back in August when they had that random like resurgence in people playing.
Where they sold out of digital codes on the website.
Yeah. So at that point, they had doubled capacity for their servers already. So they're at this point now where they're just like, this is as good as we're able to get it. So the server stuff.
Devil's advocate though is like early access involved buying a certain edition of the game, right?
Pre-ordering.
Pre-ordering. So they know how many people pre-ordered.
Yeah.
Why can't they have the server capacity? They know what they're gonna hit. Like
I think it's one of those things where it just becomes expensive to like, okay, we need to then like get these servers up and running, and then we need to rent them for a certain amount of time. We don't know how much time that's going to take, so it's just one of those scenes where they just have to bite the bullet this weekend.
So you're saying that COVID stopped them from getting access to more servers?
Everyone's working remotely. Like a lot of games. And a lot of companies are using online servers, so they can't just contact Amazon, warehouse for the servers and be like, "We need to spin up more servers." When they're like, "Well, Microsoft has bought a bunch, or Google bought a bunch."
And again, I'm not dissing the developers in this conversation. What I'm saying is that you already they knew that there might be the potential for 6,000 queue, a 6,000 player queue.
Yeah,
but they didn't come out and say. Did they come out and say anything beforehand?
They apologized multiple times this weekend and just basically gave advice of just like. Well, what also didn't help is now they're having a problem. This weekend, server hardware is basically sold out for like the servers they need. But basically now the problem they're having is people just camping in the game.
Right, because they're not going to leave their session.
Yeah, they're not going to leave their session, and that's been a problem. They're used to people leaving their session. Now you have a majority of the player base who are just refusing to leave their session, and it's like, it sucks if you're trying to get in. And now, you basically, if you want to play that night, you better log in the morning when the queue is instant, because if you try and log in at 4:00 in the afternoon, you're not playing tonight. It's gonna get better over the course of the week as more people just get through their content, especially people who are marathoning this game. to get through all of it, and so they're working through that. They've been again apologetic. They've already gave, I think, Wyatt can correct me. I think they're giving a week free for people that played this weekend. Like they won't have to pay for a week of service as an apology. So they are being apologetic. They're helping people out. So like if you couldn't play this weekend, you now get a free
impressed
service.
Wyatt must be in a queue. I'm impressed that he's chatting this much and not playing.
He's on PC. He's got multiple windows open. So yeah, it's just been kind of crazy just watching how that whole community is interacting. Like I think they hit their highest concurrent player count on Steam alone, which is like 95,000.
That's amazing.
And that's only Steam. There's also their own client on PC, and then of course the PlayStation players. So they are hitting high numbers. Clearly, that's causing.
I get it. I'm fascinated with like did they ever stop pre-orders?
No. I don't think they did. But they basically had to. I think they ended up pausing, or they ended up as a fix, basically putting like a tier system for like people on a free trial.
Okay.
To where like they basically were like, okay, if you're on a free trial, sorry, tough shit.
Yeah. We're taking care of our paid people first, which is 100% valid.
Yeah. So when they did that, it definitely like alleviated some of the servers where queues went from 6,000 to like 3,000 or 4,000. Okay. So they are doing what they can.
But it's fascinating to me. Like you start this conversation with like, oh, a friendly community, but then they're like, fuck you, I'm not leaving my server.
Well, yeah, but that's at least them not being aggressive or angry. It's just like them just being like, okay, this is what I have to do. I have to just keep my PlayStation on for 12 hours.
The rubber banded controller, or the little bobber head that's clicking the button.
So I'm not saying we would know this because we're doing it, but the haptics in the PS5 controller is a really good way to tell if you're still active in the game. If you maybe were watching, something else like The Sopranos, why someone's completing their work shift, to where you just feel the haptics of the footsteps going. You're like, okay, I wasn't kicked yet. Because if you're idle for 20 minutes, I believe, you get kicked from the server. So you have to keep.
So you're watching Sopranos, and you just wait for this little.
No, yeah, you just move the analog stick and then you hear the little pitter patter of the character's footsteps. Also, the Final Fantasy 14 haptics are fucking pretty great. Like you can feel the character jump and then when they hit the ground again.
That's cool.
It's fantastic. I wouldn't know any of this because we're not doing that when I'm watching Sopranos. So that's the Endwalker update from someone who's not actually playing Endwalker, just watching someone play Endwalker.
Wyatt puts his like what do people do? Put their mouse on like an analog watch and the ticking. Like
so we were joking because some of our friends are on PC
ticks
of just like throwing catnip on your keyboard and just letting your cat just go to town on it throughout the day. So still playing Halo Infinite. Since they added the thing where if you play 6 games, there's a certain amount of XP you can get from those 6 games. Means I'm playing at least 6 games a night before I end up bailing out. And then Hot Wheels Unleashed, opened that up, playing that. That's pretty damn fun. It looks great. I got it on a Series X. I wanted to get it on a Switch, but I'm like, I just want to see it like pretty as opposed to being on the Switch in 30 frames and kind of muddy.
It's a Christmas gift for someone, so.
Yeah, it's really fun. I do like, it does do like loot boxes, but you're getting Hot Wheels from the loot boxes, so it's like kind of cool. There's heavy theming for like Batman and stuff like that.
I think I saw some trailer just recently for that, so I have a feeling they're going to do some kind of tie-ins over time.
Yeah, there's already, like they got the Turtles van in there, individual turtle cars.
I'm sold. I'll buy it.
Yeah. Like right now I'm driving like a Gucci car or whatever. Because they just used the actual cars they sold back in the day for this. But yeah, they have like a season pass just for the Batman content, which looks super cool. I don't know if I'm going to put money in it because it's just, I'm dabbling in so many different games right now, just, for Game of the Year reasons.
That's a commitment you're not ready to make right now.
Yeah. So playing that, and then I started Life is Strange True Colors. Cool. Started the first episode. I forget exactly how they're wording this, if it's just chapters or episodes, because everything's just in the box. I'm not downloading additional things or waiting for another chapter. You're not
waiting 2 weeks for something to come out. It's everything's there.
Yeah, everything's there. So I started that. it's making me think because the last couple Life is Strange games I've started, but just didn't get around to finishing, just because they haven't been able to achieve what the first Life is Strange was able to achieve organically. Because Life is Strange, even with some of the cheesy dialogue, it felt natural, or for the most part, and you kind of grew with the characters a lot. It definitely feels like with the last couple Life is Strange games, they've been trying to capture that lightning in a bottle that they had for the first game, and they haven't quite been able to do that. At least in this first episode for this one, because I like the characters, but I see like almost like a paint by numbers way they're trying to do stuff. Like, oh, here's like some indie songs. Here's some quirky characters whose dialogue sometimes sounds a little clumsy, and they're trying to capture that nostalgia almost that the first game was able to bring. So it hasn't quite like gotten to me yet. Like, and the story of the empathy is actually not, or the power of empathy isn't too bad. Like, basically, the main character, she can kind of read people's minds and their vibes, and then she can actually channel some of that energy into herself. Interesting way to play with stuff so it doesn't feel too superpowery, or at least not yet. I'm sure that's coming, because the previous games kind of, they evolve a little bit over time. Right now I'm still trying to get used to like the town, because it takes place in Colorado and basically like a hipster haven. Like, the town's called Haven, but it's the most like hipster ass town that I've ever seen. Where it's supposed to be a mining town, but none of these 20-year-olds look like they've ever picked up a pickaxe or anything, to where it's like kind of bothering me.
A mining hipster town?
Yeah, like it's a town that's built around mining, but everyone in this town are 20-somethings that are like into yoga and indie rock, and none of them look like they've ever done manual labor in their life. So I'm kind of getting a little bit of a weird disconnect there. So I'm just trying to like figure out like if there's anything deeper going on in this town, because I don't know, it's too picturesque, too perfect of a weird town that I just can't quite figure out. Like, if this was just the developers trying to imagine like what a mountain town would be in Colorado. Yeah, to where they don't really understand it, or it's just like, wait, why is there's only one person that I've seen that's over 30 in this game. There's like a weird disconnect there. I'm still going to continue playing it just because Endwalker is going to be happening for the next like week or so. So I'm going to go through like Life is Strange.
As he gestures, because she's still playing currently.
So I'm gonna continue through it. Like, I don't hate the game. It's just I really loved OG Life is Strange, the first Life is Strange. That, like, I've been very critical to every Life is Strange that's come after that, because they haven't quite been able to like stir the same feelings or emotions.
Yeah, they struck lightning, and now they're just trying to make a thunderstorm.
Yeah. So I'm just like, I'm gonna continue playing it, and I'm hoping I end up liking it as much. But now it just makes me want to replay the remaster when that comes out in like February or March.
Yeah, like I said, I almost picked up that code. Like, there was some price error. I should have just bought it, but I messaged you and you're like, no, don't. Like, you don't think it's something that I would get too involved in.
No,
so,
not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
No, it's fine. I mean, I respect your opinion with that aspect of it. I was like, it's like $30 or $35, and I would have gotten this one and then the remaster one. But
I think Walmart had just the regular one for $15 a couple times too, which was crazy.
Yeah. So, you've been watching anything, or has it mostly been watching Final Fantasy?
It's just been I've been just watching Sopranos. Just finished rewatching season 1. I haven't seen it since I was like a kid.
Why he may or may not be randomly pressing X on a controller.
I mean, it would be triangle for jump just to be safe, because you don't want to hit like options or.
But you wouldn't know that though. So.
No. But you know what's crazy? So my friends are in a Discord, and they basically have been doing this.
Yeah.
The game this weekend, I don't know if it's always the case, but this game this weekend, one of my friends have had a problem where his cat hit the PlayStation button and kicked him to the main menu.
Oh, and so then you
kicked him out of the game.
Yeah. Oh. Did you write it? Wait, they kicked him out of the game after 20 minutes or immediately?
Immediately. Which I don't know if it's like a weird bug, but like he basically hit like the PlayStation button. You know, if you hold it, it takes you to the main screen.
Oh.
That happened to him, and it kicked him completely. And he had just gotten into the game after waiting like 4 hours. to play it. Like, he went to the bathroom, came back, and the cat was paw on the controller, and then he was done for the night because it was like 8 o'clock at night, and by the time he loaded in,
so
it would
then
been
requeue.
midnight.
Yep. Ugh.
Yeah, it's been super super brutal for that stuff. But it's weird because I don't remember that ever being an issue with this game. But I don't know if there's just weird shit happening with the new expansion.
Is that them just? I guess is that maybe them messing with the rest renew thing, like hoping that somebody can't kind of like sit in the queue and play another game, maybe. But I don't think you can do that on PlayStation.
No, because if you put it to sleep, like you can put it.
No,
you
I'm
can
talking
have
about
one
like you
game
just
and-
like you can have one game running in the background. So could you have Endwalker running in the background and play Hades?
I don't know exactly because I know you can have two games running simultaneously on PlayStation, but I think if it makes another online connection, it'll kick you off from an online game.
Because like I'll walk away from Destiny or something like that, and when I turn my PlayStation back on, it's like and I load up Destiny. It's like, are you still there? Like it could have been like that for days, like because So
So I'm not too sure exactly what happened, but it basically kicked him out of queue for being
sucks.
in the home screen. Definitely been seeing a lot of that with people where they just like get kicked out of queue or get kicked out of the game and freak out. I know I'm having problems with Halo where quick resume's been kind of annoying. Where like if I'm playing a multiplayer game, go to the main menu, or like finish a multiplayer game, turn off the system, and then I turn back the system on. Multiplayer refuses to work with quick resume. I have to like, close the app and start it up again.
It makes it seem like you're launching into matchmaking and you're not, and you're just kind of waiting there.
yeah. So then I have to like close the app completely and then reload it. Yeah. And Xbox doesn't load as fast as PlayStation, so it's just like a slightly minor inconvenience for that. But that's it for me.
All right. So questions and comments using hashtag AskDigitalDays. Stefan Wren from overseas, across the pond. I buy games normally day one, even though I know I won't immediately play them, and they will go into my ever-increasing backlog. I do this to support the developer, even though I know it could be up to a year until I get around to it. My wife thinks I'm crazy. What do you think?
I don't think you're crazy. I mean, I
think you are a little bit if you're buying a game in July and knowing you're not going to play it until like October. Like that's a little nuts.
If it's for a AAA game, I would probably say you don't need to do that. Like a AAA game will get their money, but if you're like an indie game or it's a game that like a franchise that might not come back, buying it day one is like a good way to support the developer. But if you're talking about like, I know you play Ubisoft games, so like Stefan, if you're buying like Assassin's Creed Valhalla day one, even though you don't play it for a year, it's fine. Ubisoft doesn't need your money day one. Yeah. Like they'll be fine getting your money a year later for $20. Mm-hmm. Like they aren't like struggling for money. But like when Hades came out physically, I bought that even though I bought it digitally.
Supergiant games would benefit from it a lot, obviously.
Yeah.
Drinkbox, like they come to mind too, is like Guacamelee, mm-hmm. like whatever. They're I can't remember the name of their game. Everybody's a hero, nobody's a hero. That's coming. Yeah, I'm buying. I'll buy that because I love what they did with Guacamelee, and they're like an independent studio. But yeah, like you don't need to buy Call of Duty Vanguard and know you're not going to play it for 6 months. Like, don't do that.
Yeah, yeah. It's I would say it's a case by case basis on like if the developer could use that support day one.
And
if it's a Square Enix game.
Yeah, and Steven, you're into multiplayer games now, so your backlog is just jacked. So
yeah.
He's been playing he's been playing Rainbow Six and Battlefield and Monster Hunter with some of the guys over there. They've turned him. Your backlog has no chance.
Yeah. Square Enix thinks all of their Western games sell like shit. So maybe like Guardians of the Galaxy right away, just so you can be like, hey, look, I like this thing.
Yeah.
And show Square Enix like it's keep doing this, keep supporting Western studios.
All right. Justin Duncan writes in hashtag Wrestling Minute. That's a little bit of a throwback. I thought wrestling as a whole would get better with the return of crowds. I find myself using it as background noise for both WWE and AEW. I almost tried to read those two things as words. Yeah. Do you feel the same way?
Wrestling has gotten stale. Like there was some excitement when the crowds came back the first 2 weeks, but then like WWE was like, oh, we're still not going to put effort into our stories until like all of you come back. Cause they're not selling out like stadiums anymore. So I think that has a part to do with it. And also just, this happens every time football season comes back. WWE their main show is on a Monday.
Yeah, they can't
do not compete
Nope.
And they don't. Like, they purposely don't. They
Yep.
aren't going to pull out their A material.
So you'll see it get good at like WrestleMania, like kind of kicks it off.
Yeah.
They'll start in
Wrestle-
February to ramp up to WrestleMania in March, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. And
Yep.
then like March,
Look,
April's
I know
WrestleMania.
wrestling stuff. See, I remember.
Yeah.
And then
that's when you'll see the
they
ratings
launch
first.
from WrestleMania and they do the build up to SummerSlam, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And then after SummerSlam is kind of where they're just like, shit, football and basketball season are back. Like, we're not
So
going to
yeah,
do anything.
so wrestling has a sitcom season 2. It starts Valentine's Day and ends Labor Day.
Yeah. But WWE hasn't helped themselves with like firing over 80 wrestlers this year. Like AEW is exciting, but AEW, even them, they've kind of hit like a ceiling to where like they brought Punk and they got Daniel Bryan, but then their ratings didn't go higher than like 1.2 or 1.5 million with those additions, to where even them, they're going to get moved to TBS at the beginning of the year. So we'll see how that negatively affects them.
How's that Peacock thing working for them with the app?
So WWE, they've kind of slowed down like their original content.
I have Peacock and I don't really see any WWE advertisement on the app. I have like Peacock Premium or Peacock Plus or Pay, whatever the hell it is.
They have their own header. Like, it says like TV shows, movies, WWE. But the thing is, like, WWE would be known for their original content, like their documentaries and their like just little things that they would do outside of their pay-per-views. But when they moved to Peacock, they've kind of slowed down on like all of their documentary stuff. Like all their back catalog stuff's still there. But WWE Network, they seem like they had an invested interest to have new content on that service to bring people in. But since they've been on Peacock and they have that built-in audience, they've kind of just been like, yeah, here's a show once a month.
That sucks.
Yeah. So WWE's definitely gotten kind of cheap.
What's your marketing too? Like your marketing matters tremendously as well. Like, and the thing that I've noticed the biggest right now is like, you can definitely tell that the hockey is on ESPN again.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more conversation around hockey. So from a sports perspective, like ESPN controls the narrative 80%, it's 70%, so like I just don't know what their deal was, but I don't see as much advertisement from NBC or Peacock as I thought I would.
Yeah, no, and I don't know what's going on there. Like TNT is supporting the hell out of AEW. Like you can't watch a basketball game without hearing about AEW.
You got Sunday Night Football happening on NBC and Thursday Night Football happening on NBC periodically. Why isn't there wrestling spots in there? Like,
I
don't
really
understand. Like,
because they're on Fox now. They're on they're on Universal, like they're USA Network. So they have plenty of opportunities to advertise, but they just choose not to. And I also still think WWE is trying to they're trying to prop themselves up for a sale, which they're doing a really bad job at it. They're like cutting talent to save money, but they're not putting out but they're also not putting out enough content to make people watch, which is going to lower their value. So I don't know what the hell they're doing.
All right. Next question. That was more than a minute for Michael, but I involved in the conversation too. Matt Lowe, another overseas. Currently back to playing Battlefield and Rainbow Six regularly, and my muscle memory has taken a hit. With Destiny back in the mix this week, my mind and thumbs are going to hate me. Do you guys ever struggle with muscle memory while jumping between games? My one technique is to keep Rainbow Six stored in my drunken memory and Battlefield in my sober memory, although this isn't perfect or advisable. Please drink responsibly.
If he's at home, he's fine.
Yes, muscle memory does factor into it, and I still find myself, as I've done a little bit more multi-platform gaming between Switch, Xbox, and PlayStation, obviously PlayStation being my muscle memory and my comfort level. Even playing Guardians, I still sometimes have to feel myself look down at the controller to make sure I hit the right button.
Yeah, I think I've finally gotten over the jumping from console to console thing. I do say I if I'm playing games in the same genre, I do struggle a little bit. Like there's like a relearning period for the first like 5 minutes, like if it's a shooter. Like right now, like my brain is completely in on Halo, to where if I try another shooter, the jumping feels weird to me. The controls are in the right. I
did immediately remap Halo to play in Melee, very similar to Destiny. Like immediately.
I'm playing by default stuff, but when I tried to play Battlefield a little bit, the controls felt so weird to me, where I was like, okay, I'm gonna just put this down and go back to Halo. So I definitely have that with shooters. Though most shooters are kind of streamlined now in terms of like controls. But
Yeah,
it
reload,
then comes
shoot,
down to
jump, crouch,
yeah,
it's all the same.
yeah, it comes down to feel for most of the time. Like Halo's got a very specific jump
Hmm.
and motion and speed that when I try and play another shooter, I'm a little thrown off. Uh,
Yeah. So yeah, it definitely happens. Sometimes it's just that's part of the reason why at least if you guys have noticed with me, like I'll go in waves. Like when I start playing Zelda or something like that, I'm playing that, and then I know when I pick up Metroid and actually start it, I like that'll be a heavy focus for me for a couple of days.
mhm.
And, I just got to get to the point where I do that with some of these games. Or I've got to get like ingrained into them. I want to do that with Death's Door. I want to do that with Metroid. I just got to force myself to do it. Not force myself, but yes, but force myself.
Yeah.
So, um, all right, so that's our show for this week. A little shorter, not terrible. So you can follow us on the socials on the Twitter. Main account is at Digital Days Pod. Michael's account is at First MJC. You can see him tweeting pictures of him watching somebody play his PlayStation.
I also played Unpacking, but whatever.
And mine, my Twitter is at Good Dave Hunt. Facebook group, Discord server are linked in the show notes. You can check those out there. Patreon, patreon.com/Digital Days Gaming, where you can choose to support us in multiple ways. $1 tip jar, $3 gets you Discord access to a private channel. $5 gets you 24-hour early access to the numbered shows, our regular weekly show. You get it on Wednesday instead of Thursday. And $7 gets you the monthly bonus episode. We just did an episode on cartoons or childhood television.
Yeah.
And like in the Facebook group, Curry put up a good post about more reasons why he doesn't like Michael. So we definitely had some fun recording that episode. And so we're always looking forward to the possibility of getting more patrons. You will get access to I don't even know the number, but like 18 or 19 bonus episodes. Like there's a lot, and I would say they're 2/3 not gaming topics. Is that fair?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So if you do want to know a little bit more about us on that kind of level, it's under the $7 tier. Again, please do not support us on Patreon if you're not financially able to do so. You are not obligated. We appreciate everyone that does it, but we do not expect anyone to do it. It's just another way for you to show support for the show if you so choose. But other than that, I don't have anything. Michael, you got anything else?
Nope. We'll just hope the Game Awards is good enough for us to record a bonus episode. If not, we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah. All right. I hope everyone has a great week. Keep moving forward.
Don't be a dick.